Bom dia a todos. Queria dar boas-vindas a vocês por estarem aqui e declarar que o Brasil Fórum começou oficialmente em nome da LSSU Brazilian Society. Também gostaria de welcome aqui à nossa casa, sejam bem-vindos. E gostaria de introduzir a todos o professor Dr. Francisco Panizza, professor em Latin American Studies aqui à LSI. Ele vai dar o speech de abertura. Obrigada.
Bom dia para todos. Eu gostaria muito de falar em português, mas meu português está meio enferrujado e está ficando mais portunhol do que português, então vou seguir em inglês, que na verdade é meu terceiro idioma. Enfim, it is my honor and my privilege to represent the London School of Economics in the opening of the Brazil Forum. I would like to congratulate the LSE Brazilian Society and its president, Maria Antônia de Carli, for organizing this event, and thank the Brazilian Embassy and all the people and sponsors that have supported it and made it possible. This forum comes at a special time in Brazil's history. Perhaps special is not the most appropriate word and can even be interpreted as a euphemism. Perhaps it would be more appropriate to say that Brazil is in crisis. The Oxford English Dictionary defines crisis as a time of intense difficulty or danger, and few would disagree that Brazil is facing great difficulties, politically, social, and economically, and that the failure to address these difficulties carries potentially great dangers for Brazil's polity and society. But if crisis is associated with danger, the word originally meant a turning point for better or worse in an acute situation. I do firmly believe that Brazil is at this turning point, and whether the turn will be for the better or for the worse is still largely uncertain. And the direction this turn will take depends, I think, fundamentally on two things. First, that the Brazilian people, and particularly its decision makers, are able to think beyond the country's immediate problems, real and pressing as they are, and identify the deep causes behind the current economic, social, and political problems, in order to find their long-term solutions and put them into practice. Corruption did not start with Lava Jato, or is the responsibility of a few bad apples. Budget deficits do not grow out of nothing and for no reason. The cycles of economic growth, followed by deep recessions that hurt the poor the most, is all too familiar for anyone that has followed the Brazilian economy over the past 30 years. And some problems, such as inequality, criminal violence, and gender discrimination, are so ingrained in the fabric of society that they cannot even be regarded as being a crisis, because by definition, crises emerge at a certain point in time and don't last forever. So, I think this forum is a great opportunity for the participants to reflect on the country's deep-rooted problems and discuss possible solutions. This, I must say, has always been the mission of the London School of Economics, as stated in its motto, Rerum conocere causas, to know the causes of things. And this is why we very much welcome this event. I think that the agenda of the forum is particularly suitable for this purpose, as it goes beyond the headlines to address questions such as gender inequality, sustainable development, and economic competitiveness, together with others that capture the urgency of the current agenda, such as the role of the judiciary in the country's democracy. But if the current crisis is to make a turn for the better in the history of Brazil, identifying its causes is only the first step. Solutions must be enacted to bear fruit. Implementing the necessary reforms, social, political, and economic, is the responsibility of many social actors, from business to social organizations, but is fundamentally the roles of governments and of the state. And driving through the necessary solutions is perhaps the hardest part of the goal of turning a crisis for the best. Reforms do not necessarily have to be popular or have unanimous support. Sometimes governments have to take unpopular decisions, and as you say in Brazil, as unanimidades son burras. But it's also not enough that reforms are technically sound. They also need to be regarded as fair and legitimate. Fair because even the best long-term reforms have short-term costs and produce losers as well as winners. How this cost has to be distributed and whether and how the losers should be compensated is a crucial part of any successful reform project. And if reforms are to endure, the process of adoption needs to be regarded as legitimate, even if there are disagreements about their substance. There is no democracy without conflict, and conflicts and disagreements are part of a healthy democracy. But conflict cannot go so deep as to put into question the legitimacy of those who take the decisions or the reasons for which they are being taken. Legitimacy means more than taking decisions that are legally authoritative. In a democracy, legitimacy is ultimately given by the consent of the citizens. And the legitimacy that derives from the consent of the citizens is not, of course, the same as ruled by opinion polls. It is the trust that the representatives are acted on behalf of the represented, that is, of the citizens. As we all know, relations of trust have been eroded by events and revelations that we are all very familiar with, and is reflected in the deep political polarization that the country is currently experiencing. Governments can risk unpopularity, but cannot rule forever with their backs to society. The great danger of this situation, in my view, is that it can open a gap between legality and legitimacy with unforeseen consequences. It is up to the political system as a whole to reconnect with the citizens in a way that restores the relations of trust that are of the essence of democracy. And a crucial condition for this is the perception that decisions are taken for the benefit of the many and not of the few, and that the rule of law is being applied equally to all citizens, irrespectively of their wealth, gender, and social or political status. Let's hope that this 2 days conference and debate throw some light over Brazil's long-term problems and also over the best ways of reinforcing trust in the democratic process and in the rule of law. Thank you very much.